Well, full disclosure, I'm joined by my business attorney, Brian King. How are you, my
I'm
friend?
doing well, thanks.
Fantastic. Brian, how long have you been practicing law in the CSRA?
Well, in the CSRA, a little over 15 years, total, a little over 20 years.
Wonderful. Well, I understand the array of services that you provide and have worked with you for many years. But for those folks who maybe don't know, what are some of the type things that you'll do for clients?
Well, I review and draft contracts. I advise business owners on how to protect their assets and grow their businesses. So, I review leases, draft them. Just really, if somebody's buying or selling a business, I'll draft the documents and advise them and help negotiate that deal. So,
Excellent. Why don't we start at the beginning in case anyone's watching that is thinking about going into business? How do you get started?
well, it'd be nice if they would call me first before they go to LegalZoom or any of those other organizations online. But I will, draft. I'll prepare I'll form the company for them. I'll get their EIN number and talk to them about their business and try to help them avoid roadblocks that they may or may not be, thinking about, and draft the contracts that they'll need to protect themselves going forward.
You mentioned EIN. How interesting, employer identification number. I get asked that a lot because we formed Augusta Business Daily LLC. Why
Right.
is that number, the EIN number, so important?
Well, to file your federal taxes, you have to have it, and then you also need it for a lot of other things like opening your business bank account. They're going to want to see that along with your other organizational documents before the bank will open up your account. So,
Yeah, and I guess one of the next steps after you help form the entity, you mentioned leases. Are there just a couple of things that you've seen through the years that are in leases that maybe people who are going to rent office space or rent at a strip center, maybe they make a mistake and they sign for?
yeah, one of the biggest things is the term of the lease. So when you're just starting a brand new business, you don't want to agree to, say, a 10-year term or something like that when you don't even know if your business is going to be successful in that many years. So, you want to try to aim for, say, a 1 to 3 year term if possible. You want to look at some condition of the premises and whether it's going to meet your needs and for the growth that you expect to have in that period of time. You want to check into possible renovations that could be done by the landlord, and maybe there's some money that they could put towards that to make it meet your circumstances. And then things like the HVAC, you want to make sure that is going to be covered in the lease. Where if the HVAC is old and needs to be replaced, maybe you can negotiate to get the landlord to go ahead and replace that, or provide some sort of allowance for if it breaks down within a certain amount of time, that they would cover that.
So in our lease, our headquarters are at 930 Stevens Creek Road, and it says that if a technician has to be called out, up to the first $500,
Sure.
we're responsible. Is that standard?
Yes, and that dollar amount can vary based on the lease, but that's basically if you maintain the unit, and then if it goes above that, say, the $500 mark, then the landlord comes in and either they can decide whether they want to replace it or spend the extra money to keep repairing it.
Right. And about contracts, what do you think businesses should enter into contracts for? Like, are there some specific reasons to have a contract, or maybe the top three reasons?
Well, to define what services or products that you're going to provide the price that those services or products will be provided at, and the payment terms, if they're going to be paying over, monthly, like a subscription type service or that sort of thing. A lot of miscellaneous provisions that get added in by me when I'm looking at these documents that sometimes the contract, there's certain elements of the contract that need to be particular to a particular industry, whether it's the music industry or the, construction industry or whatever. There's certain terms and all that are kind of that go into those. But then there's also some miscellaneous provisions like, jurisdiction. Where are you going to litigate if there's a dispute? What law is going to govern, and that sort of thing. So those miscellaneous provisions, which there's a lot of them, tend to get tacked on at the end, but they're very important to have.
Yeah, you mentioned that, and I have a close relative that we're working out arrangements for Augusta Business Daily LLC, and we don't ever, God forbid, have a problem, want to go to court. So we thought of kind of mediation, arbitration. What would the difference be between those two, and is that a good step before you have to go see the judge?
Right. Well, alternative dispute resolution has become very popular in the last years, and because it takes so long to get things resolved in courts today, and you never know what a judge or a jury is going to do. So to try to speed up the dispute resolution process, and to have a little more certainty about what kinds of things are going to be considered and what's going to happen. A lot of times people will put in arbitration provisions or mediation followed by arbitration provisions. So yeah, I mean, it really is, because contracts is just up to the parties as to what they want to put in there, and the court will enforce those arbitration provisions or alternative dispute resolution provisions. So, if you if you had to go to court to enforce them, to compel arbitration or whatever. So, there's certain organizations like the AAA or not the car one, but
Sure.
but other arbitration methods where they have certain rules and procedures that are already set forth, and you can kind of opt into those existing ones, or you can create your own.
Yeah. And of course, we all the time find that companies are selling their business to a family, and the family comes in. And so you mentioned the buy-sell agreement. How are both sides protected in that? And do you recommend really taking your time with that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so a lot of times a buy-sell will kick in when one person dies, and then the remaining business owner will buy out the other one, and they'll pay money to that person's estate, and then they'll continue to run the business without that person. But they make sure that person gets the value of the business that they held, right at their death, and so the buy-sell provision will set forth the way that payment is calculated, or the way that value is calculated, and then the payment terms, whether it's paid all in lump sum or whether it's paid over a period of years because it's a tremendous amount of money. Maybe it's worth millions of dollars. So you may trigger a promissory note payment, that pays the value over time. But you could have triggers because of bankruptcy filings or divorces, things like that. So,
Well, the best way maybe to get in touch with Brian is he has a website with a lot of good resources at businessattorneylaw.com, businessattorneylaw.com. Brian, thank you so much. And before we scoot, so it's your first time in the podcast studio.
It is.
What'd you think?
I think it's great. Yeah. This is a very neat way of communicating with my potential clients. So
excellent. Well, we hope that folks get in touch with you, and we thank them, David and Chris, and their website is AugustaPodcasts.com. That's AugustaPodcasts.com.